Hi, dear players! Welcome to my Eggy workshop tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll learn about switches and switch areas. Firstly, switches and switching areas both control event triggers by toggling between the on and off states. Let's start with the advanced settings for switches. Below the advanced settings for switches, there are options for event trigger switch to on and event trigger switch to off. Here, we'll set event trigger switch to on as A and event trigger switch to off as B. To see whether events A and B are triggered, we can create a basic block and add a uniform circular motor to it. Then, we can set event start the motor to A and event stop the motor to B. This means that when the switch is toggled to the on state, event A triggers, the basic block will perform a uniform circular motion. When the switch is toggled to the off state, event B triggers, the basic block will stop moving. Now that we understand how switches control event triggers, let's explore the other advanced settings for switches. In addition to colors, the next option is the trigger mode for the switch, which can be either touch or event. Since the event trigger mode involves fewer advanced settings, let's start with it. In the event trigger mode, you can see open event and close event. When the open event is triggered, the switch toggles to the on state, and when the close event is triggered, the switch toggles to the off state. Let's set the open event to C and the close event to D. Next, create an event trigger zone and set event trigger enter area to C and event trigger leave area to D. This means that when you enter the area, the switch toggles to the on state C, and when you leave the area, the switch toggles to the off state D. Now that we know how switches toggle in the event trigger mode, let's explore the touch trigger mode. In the touch trigger mode, you can choose between player and object in switch triggered by. Only the selected option can change the switch's state. During the previous test play you saw the effects of player-triggered switches. Now, let's find out how the object-triggered switches work. First, let's create a small block. When you touch the switch, it won't be triggered. However, when you pick up the block and use it to touch the switch, and the switch changes its state. This is how choosing object-triggered switches works. Because of time limitations, we'll wrap up our discussion on the advanced settings for switches here. In the next session, I'll explain the remaining advanced settings for switches and switch areas.